All my Thanksgivings have been wonderful, but here's a fiction Thanksgiving horror story. Hopefully, it will give you a scare. The Haunted Restaurant by John Lance Jane, 2018. The evening of Thanksgiving Day had arrived, and Frank was driving slowly down a deserted city street with his wife Norma and his new friend Sam. Normally, that street would be bustling with activity all evening until well past midnight. But on Thanksgiving evening, the entire city resembled a ghost town, for everyone preferred to stay at home to enjoy their Thanksgiving feast. Frank and Norma had always done Thanksgiving at home also, but Frank had recently befriended Sam at work and had invited him to join them this year. Frank had learned the hard way that Sam had an allergic reaction to something in Frank's apartment, and therefore the three of them had decided to look for a restaurant to celebrate Thanksgiving this year. Not much luck, with most everything closed down on Thanksgiving. Until... "Look!" exclaimed Sam. "Up ahead! I see some neon lights still on." When Frank's car had drawn closer to the still-burning neon lights, Sam exclaimed, "Hey, it's a restaurant. Lights still on inside. Maybe it's open tonight." With no other cars on the street, Frank was able to park right in front of the restaurant. He, Norma, and Sam went up to the restaurant, found the doors still open, and entered. A sign just inside said, "Please sit anywhere, and we'll be right with you." Frank let Norma choose a table, and she chose a secluded booth well away from the entrance. The three of them were the only diners in the whole restaurant. Frank and Sam started looking through the menus right away, but Norma took some time to look around the room. From her seat, she could see the cashier's booth near the entrance. Suddenly, she gasped and said to Frank softly, "Look, the cashier has no head. Shall we run and leave?" "No, that would be risky," replied Frank, also in a soft voice. "If we try to leave, he and the waiters will get suspicious and come after us. It's safer to stay than to try to leave. Besides, food is food, whether it's served by real people or by headless ghosts." Just then, a headless waiter approached Frank's booth and placed a glass of water in front of each diner. Startled and scared, the three diners mustered up their courage and resisted the urge to flee. Then they all heard a voice, seemingly coming from deep within the earth below, saying, "Take your time. I'll be back shortly." The waiter then left the table, and the three diners returned to looking at the menus. They were all ready with their orders, just as the headless waiter returned to their table. He seemed to know just when they were all ready to place their orders. After taking their orders, he startled the diners even more by bringing the hot, steaming plates of food to the table in less than a minute. It was just as if he had known and had prepared in advance the entrees that the diners would order even before they placed the orders. The diners did not question anything. Instead, Frank thanked the waiter, and the diners started eating. They found their entrees prepared and cooked just as they had requested, despite the very short time between the placing of the orders and the bringing of the food. They enjoyed an excellent meal, left a generous tip, and left the restaurant without incident. Still, they felt a sense of relief to be back in Frank's car and on their way. When Frank and Norma arrived at their apartment, Norma looked through her purse, looked around the car, looked through her purse again, and said, "I think I left my scarf at the restaurant. I guess we'll have to go back tomorrow to get it." So the next day, Frank and Norma went back to the restaurant and entered shortly after it opened. This time, the cashier and all the waiters had heads on their shoulders, as Frank and Norma sort of expected anyway. "Sir, did you find a green scarf in the second-to-last booth in that far aisle?" Norma asked the cashier. "I think I left it there last night." "We did not open it all yesterday," replied the cashier. "You didn't?" asked Frank. "Is this the Limp restaurant?" "Yes, it is," replied the cashier. "And this is number 3322 on Demimel Street?" asked Frank. "Yes, it is," said the cashier. "But we were closed yesterday. Nobody could have left anything." Norma then interjected. "Okay, if I go back there to look for myself?" "Okay, you may," replied the cashier. Norma walked over to the table where she, Frank, and Sam had sat barely 12 hours ago. "There it is," she exclaimed. "My scarf is still there." The cashier turned pale with fright. "Why, that's impossible," he exclaimed. He then called the manager. When the manager arrived several seconds later, the cashier asked him, "Was anyone in here yesterday?" "No one at all," replied the manager. "This place was locked from closing time Wednesday until this morning. No sign of any break-in. Yet, this woman said that she had left her scarf here last night, and it was here this morning," said the cashier. "Impossible," exclaimed the manager, turning pale himself. "If anyone came in here any time yesterday, the alarm would have sounded and brought the police. That never happened." "But I'm sure I was here," interjected Norma. "I left my scarf by mistake, and there it was on the seat over there. It has my name on the name tag, proving that it is indeed mine." The cashier then looked at the pile of past bills next to the cash register and exclaimed, "Look, someone did eat here last night. This bill says Thursday, November 26th, which was yesterday, Thanksgiving Day. Party of 3. "That was us," said Frank. "We and a friend were that party of 3. "Does it specify the waiter's name?" asked the manager. "Yes," replied the cashier. "It's Ted W." "We don't have anyone named Ted on our staff," said the manager. "Is it possible that you had a Ted on your staff long ago and that he died and returned from the dead to serve us?" asked Norma. "I mean, we were served by a headless waiter and a headless cashier last night. Maybe they are ghosts that had worked here long ago during their lives on Earth." "Let me check our tax records," said the manager. "They go back 7 years." He then left the area and returned after a few minutes. "Yes, we had a Ted Warner about 7 years ago. A note attached to his W-2 form says that he was run down and killed by a drunk driver just about 2 months after joining us. So that must have been his ghost that served," began Norma. "Oops, customer's coming in," interrupted the cashier. "Got to take him to a table." He then left the conversation and went to the entrance to greet the new arrivals. "I guess we should leave too," said Frank. "We got our scarf, so we won't disturb you anymore. Thanks for letting us get it." When Frank and Norma arrived back at home, Frank logged into his computer. "Look here," he said to his wife. "Here's the website of the Limp restaurant. It says that they're open 364 days a year. The one day of the year when they're closed is Thanksgiving Day. I guess those headless ghosts took over on Thanksgiving Day and saved the day for us," replied Norma. "They looked so scary, but I guess nobody will hurt us if we treat them with courtesy and leave a big tip. Not even a ghost." The end.